What's up, guys? Paulie Malignaggi for Paulie TV. Post Amazon PBC card. I didn't get to do something last night. I was working doing the watch along with ProBox TV, but Isaac Pitbull, Cruz, and Lamont Roach put on last night in a really good, entertaining scrap in San Antonio, Texas. Decent card overall. Stephen Fulton showed up like he forgot he had a fight against O'Shaquie Foster, who probably put on a career best performance over Fulton. Where do we start here? You know, Arislan De Lara dominated Johan Gonzalez, who was a replacement for Janabek after Janabek failed the drug test. But, you know, I'll basically just talk about the main event and co-main event. You know, in the co-main event, O'Shaquie Foster, he looked really, really good. You know, going into the fight with O'Shaquie Foster and Stephen Fulton, I thought that Fulton could be a real live dog and have a real chance to pull off what would have been a minor upset ultimately. You know, Fulton really impressed me in the Figueroa win, in rematch with Figueroa. You know, a lot of people had written him off after the Inoue fight, and the fight after Inoue, he didn't look so great. So for him to put on the performance he did against Figueroa really impressed me, and I thought maybe some momentum was behind him and pushing him forward. And O'Shaquie's a bit of an inconsistent guy himself, so I thought Fulton could really take advantage of that. But what we ended up getting was a career best performance from O'Shaquie, and Stephen Fulton, who didn't make weight, showed up heavy for a fight that was already at the highest weight of his career, and he didn't make weight. So that was already a red alarm, red flag there. And O'Shaquie fought well out of both stances, really dictated the pace with his lead hand. Was landing a pretty solid short right hook from the southpaw stance, but really never let Steven into the fight and dominated from the start. And in something that was a bit of a surprise for me. Like I said, I thought Fulton, I was slightly leaning towards Fulton to even upset O'Shaquie, you know. Like I said, it would have been a minor upset because the odds were so close, but really O'Shaquie never was at the threat of losing the fight, and Fulton was never even a threat to win the fight. I mean, from the moment the fight started, you know, and again, you got to start to question things about, you know, how much does Fulton have left now? You got to go back to having that conversation, even though the Figueroa win made people go away from that conversation. Now you got to start to have it again, because you got to start to question his motivation, showing up overweight for a 130-pound fight, which is a weight class he was already going to be fighting at his career high. He had a chance to win a third world championship in this third weight class, which, speaking to my buddy Breadman Edwards last night, no Philadelphia fighter, as great as Philadelphia's boxing history has been, no Philadelphia fighter has won 3 championships in 3 weight classes. So Fulton had a chance to make history in this fight, and for him to show up so ill prepared and so on and so forth, it's kind of a shame. I have some sources. I don't want to put blame out there from the rumor mill, so to speak. What I was hearing from some sources in Philadelphia, and again, this is just could be just hearsay, but Danny Garcia opened up a bar in the Philadelphia area, and I was told that Stephen Fulton was there almost every night, you know, in the preparation for this fight. So if that's the case, maybe could be a little reason why he showed up overweight, showed up with a lack of, you know, what would seem like preparation. Granted, he was able to do 12 rounds, so I didn't like he was out of shape or anything. But again, being in shape and getting sharp for a fight is 2 different things, you know. And O'Shaquie showed up really, really good, really sharp, and in shape for this fight, and you know, gets the meritorious praise for it. And honestly, in a 130-pound division that, you know, is sort of lacking any names now that Lamont Roach has been stripped the 130-pound title and probably won't go back to that weight class, one would think that O'Shaquie may be the premier name. You know, they're talking about possibly maybe a Navarrete fight against O'Shaquie. That would be a pretty good fight at 130 pounds to spice up that weight class. And like I said, O'Shaquie with a career best performance. Moving on to the main event, Lamont Roach and Isaac Pitbull Cruz. For me, the concern for this fight was the possibility, can Lamont get a close decision against Pitbull Cruz? I didn't expect this fight to be one-sided in any direction going in. And so, you know, when you're fighting in Texas against a Mexican or even against a Texican, it tends to be pretty tough to get a decision. You know, Texas has some great boxing fans, and I realize why boxing always returns to Texas despite the controversy of that commission. But controversies that have happened in that commission, you know, time and again. But, you know, the Texas fan base is so rabid, and it's such a big fan base that you can't help but keep bringing boxing back. I mean, it's just something you have to do because Texas has some of the top fans in this country. So naturally, this fight went to Texas. San Antonio was the scene of this card. And again, the question was whether Pitbull can get a decision. I mean, not whether Lamont could get a decision over Pitbull, if he in fact would have deserved it. Now, looking back, there are people that think it was a robbery. There are people that think Lamont should have won the fight. I think this fight was pretty close. You know, you could lean it towards Lamont a little bit because he closed stronger, but Pitbull started faster. And then the thing about that is that I think people a lot of times have the memory of how the fight ended is their memory of how the fight went. So the what have you done for me lately applies even in directly in fights. Pitbull started the fight very, very good though, so people forget that. He probably was banking a lot of those early rounds. Lamont Roach had a right hand injury during the fight, which may have hampered him a little bit, but I thought he did well in the second half of the fight, honestly. I thought Pitbull sort of slowed down his pressure, slowed down his intensity, and it allowed Lamont to start to get into a bit of a groove. And he did really well. There was a knockdown, legitimate knockdown, and there was also a point taken away. There was a lot of knockdown of Lamont Roach, but there was also a point taken away, a bit controversially, from Pitbull Cruz, from a, kind of a ticky-tack foul with the rabbit punches. But here's my defense of this. Maybe he didn't deserve to lose a point there, but he probably deserved to lose a point for the intentional headbutt that he gave Lamont was around round 3. So either way, a point at some point would have had to have been taken away from Pitbull Cruz. I know Pitbull talking about his innocence after the fight. It's a bit hard to believe. At this point, we know what Pitbull Cruz is, and he's lost points in several other fights as well. So he does have a reputation to be a little bit of a dirty fighter, rough fighter. You get away with what you can, but you also can't complain about being punished when you do break the rules, if I can say that myself. So I think ultimately a point for something should have been deducted from Pitbull Cruz, and it was, And ultimately what the point was deducted for maybe was a little bit of a ticky-tack foul, but in the overall scheme of things, he's got to lose a point during that fight. He's doing way too much, especially early on when he's searching for the KO. Pitbull is the guy who's got one direction. He goes straight forward and comes to attack you, so he always makes for entertaining fights. Lamont's not really a runner himself, so he boxes well and he'll engage. And early on, that engaging actually was sending him backwards a lot because Pitbull's the stronger of the two. But like I said, once Pitbull Cruz started slowing down, I thought Lamont's boxing acumen, punch selection was really coming into play, and he worked himself back into the fight. Whether you think Pitbull won or whether you think Lamont won, I think you have an argument for both cases. And I don't think a draw is as controversial as it's being made out to be. I think the controversy of the draw is being made out because this is Texas. So sometimes because Texas had this reputation, now anything close becomes controversial. And of course, there's more gasoline put on the fire because, again, a close fight is always going to be controversial. Both sides are going to come out thinking they won. And again, you add the fact that this is Texas, which has a controversial reputation. And I think it becomes more of a talking point than really it should be. I think this was a close fight. I would personally like to see a rematch. Some people say, oh, it's tedious. There was a little bit of holding and stuff like that in the fight. But I wasn't entertained by the fight. I thought there was drama in the fight. First in the beginning when Pitbull came out like a bat out of hell and almost knocked Lamont out. It looked like Lamont was going to get stopped. He was a bit uncomfortable. His backwards momentum was putting him in flight. You started to wonder, if he can't stop this momentum from Pitbull, how's he going to survive the fight? But then all of a sudden, when he turned it around, he started boxing beautifully. Really good shot selection, landing some good left hooks, left uppercuts, and really got going. So, I think it sets the stage for a good rematch. Lamont Roach, 2 draws in 2025, but 2 draws where I think he comes out looking better either way. Could he have gotten both decisions? I certainly think he deserved the Gervonta Davis decision. Last night, there could be an argument that he deserved that decision as well, but it's close. I think Pitbull Cruz also may have an argument that he wants that decision, So I think a rematch for this fight could be awesome. Maybe for the vacant WBA title that Gervonta Davis doesn't want to defend against anybody who's going to be even a minor threat. So I think that would be pretty cool if they would just strip Gervonta Davis of the title at this point and let these two guys fight for the vacant title in a rematch. I think that would be the right thing to do, especially that Lamont was stripped of the 130-pound title once the bell rang in round 1 last night, So Lamont is no longer a world champion, but yet I think he's raised his stock and his profile tremendously in 2025 and has a lot of momentum going into 2026. And I think Pitbull, continues to be exciting, continues to be a fighter that, will put asses in seats. And despite his limitations, is still a world-class fighter and still a strong guy. And again, for that reason, I'd like to see a rematch. Let me know what you guys think. Who do you guys think won the fight? Do you think it was controversial? What do you think about Fulton and O'Shaquie Foster. Where does Foster go from here? Where does Fulton go from here? Do you think he's shot? Do you think he's he's on a big decline? Do you want to see a rematch with Pitbull and Lamont Roach, or do you want to see these two guys take on other guys? I personally also think Lamont and Pitbull should both fight at 135 if they rematch. I think that would be, again, I mentioned that it should be for the vacant title that Gervonta Davis should probably be stripped of. So instead of making the fight at 140, these two guys are probably 135 pounders, and that would probably be best case scenario. That's my opinion. Let me know what you think. Let me know in the comments your thoughts. Like, subscribe. It's Paulie Malignaggi, and this is Paulie TV.